Even though we sometimes are out of sync, I do like to hear everyone's voices, and that way the public knows it's not just me that they're listening to. So if everybody wants to unmute and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me, that would be great. All right, I will start. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic
which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody participating in that. That's kind of fun. All right, we are moving on. I need to approve the agenda for tonight.
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Mike, for seconding. Okay, any questions or discussion on the agenda? Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that passes. Thank you so much. And I now need a motion for the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda for tonight's board meeting.
Thanks, Ashley.
I second it.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks for seconding that. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand so I can see. And that is everybody. That's 6 votes. I'm still not seeing Candace, right? I'm checking my second screen just to make sure I'm not missing her. Okay, great. Thank you. That takes us to a special presentation. Amy, Hallie, would you like to start, or Mike, do you want to say a few words to start us off on the language arts curriculum?
Oh, I just like to say that I'm really excited about this curriculum and this presentation from the team. I know they've worked really hard on this. It's been quite a journey over the last couple of months, but let's go with it. Come on.
Okay, we'll go.
Good team.
Joel, do I have the ability to share my screen?
You should, Amy. Give it a try.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up, and then it's been a while since I've done a presentation and Zoom all at the same time, so I'm out of practice. Who would have thought? All right, so got a weird box here. Sorry while I fumble through this for a second. Okay, so first of all, I just want to introduce you to the folks we have with us and kind of talk a little bit about our committee. So it was myself and Assistant Principal Martin who were on the team with a handful of our staff. So we had our special education teacher who is with us tonight, Stephanie Shoemaker. And I don't know, Stephanie, if you want to unmute and say hi, so you'll pop up. And
yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for having me tonight. I appreciate it.
And then our intervention specialist, Shauna Bradley, who's not here with us this evening. We had 4 of our classroom teachers, our kindergarten teacher, Nastalia Rains, who's here tonight.
Sorry, I just waved. Hello, thank you for having me.
And then we had a 2nd grade teacher, Jessica May.
Hi guys, thank you for having me.
And then our 3rd grade teacher, Mackenzie Breland, and 5th grade teacher, Ashley Thayer. And then we had our English language development specialist, Bethany Cross.
Hi, it's good to see everyone again.
So this evening, I have a few of them with me. We also had a parent evening last week that the other folks joined, so we sort of split it in half. So I want to talk to you kind of about the process, and then our team is going to dig into highlighting some of the curriculum for you, and then we'll have time at the end for questions if there's anything that you'd like to ask. So first of all, this was sort of our overall process. We began the initial adoption by doing a survey with our staff and gathering some input. Our teachers, I think maybe the first week that I was here as principal, started talking to me about needing a reading curriculum and talking about how outdated our materials were. So I knew that there was a lot of interest. So we gathered some input from our stakeholders in the building, and teachers provided a lot of great information for us. And then from there, we worked as a K-12 team to sort of calibrate our knowledge around literacy and make sure that we were all on the same page and speaking the same language. That was led by Amy Aguero. We also reviewed the district vision for reading instruction, and we determined our reading priorities as a school in terms of how it connects to the bigger picture, that K-12 picture. So I will go over that in just a moment and kind of tell you what that looked like. And then from there, we created some themes or a shopping list, if you will, to look for when we were reviewing the curriculum. We knew that the curriculum that was provided to us through the state of Oregon had a pretty rigorous screening process. So we were mostly wanting to make sure that we were clearly identifying what our top items were that we wanted to make sure were included. All of the curriculums had great features, but the one that we're going to talk about tonight really checked all of our boxes. And then lastly, we reviewed the curriculum as a team. We took a team of folks to the Lane ESD and looked through all of the curriculum and judged it based on our rubric that we created, which kind of helped to narrow down our choices. Kind of circling back to that calibration, we talked about this reading rope, which was new for a lot of us. It's actually been around since 2009, but this visual really helps to underscore how each of the literacy standards are really interdependent upon one another. They're not standalone. That visual up in the corner where it shows the big five of reading, that is how many of us were taught reading and how to teach reading. And so many times teachers would see them as individual content areas versus intertwined with one another and within the full English language arts world. I lost you there. Oh, there we go. So we reviewed our vision and mission and talked a lot about the rigor, relevance, and relationships and how we at Creswell wanted to make sure that we were helping to set students up for success at the secondary level. So from there, we kind of talked about two things. We first talked about how Creswell plans to support the district, and you'll see on your screen a lot of stuff, but I'll sort of summarize that. But we talked about we wanted to make sure we were aligning our curriculum between grade levels. We wanted a strong writing curriculum. We know that writing is really critical at the secondary levels as well. And we wanted to make sure that it was embedded within our reading curriculum because that typically, writing is typically an area that a lot of teachers feel like maybe they're not the most competent in and they need some guidance with that. And so we wanted to make sure it was really embedded within our reading curriculum. We also felt that having multi-tiered systems at our school is going to help meet the needs of our students to be able to catch those holes and those areas that they need additional support. We wanted to make sure that we're providing them a culturally relevant curriculum and that we are using our PLCs to really review data and align the standards. So that helped us to identify what our curriculum priorities were, and you'll see them listed there. So we wanted to make sure first and foremost that we had tiered instruction within the curriculum. We wanted some handwriting and a writing process connected to the core. We know we need a strong phonics foundation at the elementary level. We heard from our secondary folks that vocabulary instruction is really key and that it's really important for us to continue to boost that at the elementary level so that they're more successful at the secondary. We wanted sentence stems and sentence starters for our students, not only for their oral vocab or their oral language, but also their written language. We wanted to have multiple connections to real world careers and more relevant reading experiences. And that was more with that nonfiction paired with nonfiction. So that Bethany will talk a little bit more about that when she gets to her language and vocabulary sections. And we want to make sure there's assessment, novel study opportunities, and explicit instruction for those tier 2 and tier 3 vocabulary words. So from there, we had our shopping list. This was our themes that we categorized for the top areas that we were going to look for in a curriculum. So you'll see them listed there. And when we reviewed all of the curriculum, the benchmark advance was the top curriculum that matched all of our needs. It met every single one of those 100% and then more and then some. There was also additional components that we weren't necessarily looking for, but really there was some key things that our teachers are going to talk about that they really loved. I'm not going to show this to you now, but there is a link on this slide to the website, and there is some videos for both parents and staff to be able to review if they want to hear a little bit more from the publishers. So with that, we're going to jump in and talk a little bit about each of those themes. And so I'll have the teachers just unmute when it's your turn and let me know when you want me to advance my slide.
So I was going to talk about foundational skills, and this program is very strong in phonemic awareness and phonics skills, and it also blends together the word recognition all in one unit. And it's a 5-day lesson path for teachers, so it makes it easy for teachers to make it through that lesson in a week, or that part of the unit in a week. The skills are also layered on K through 5, and there are supports for a variety of learners, as you can see in the slide. It also introduces text annotation and uses common language for that, kindergarten through 5th grade, which we know is important going into middle school and high school. Another component was the phonics lessons are awesome. There's a little video of a person actually pronouncing the sound. And there's also words that give detailed descriptions of how to pronounce each sound. So we thought that was really great. And then the handwriting and letter formation are universal and taught uniformly K through 5. So.
Bethany, do you want me to click on this link here? Did you want me to bring that up?
I don't think that they can look at it too, can't they?
Okay, yes.
But it's just a more detailed look at what the lesson path is. So that's it for foundational skills.
All right, and Miss Martin was going to talk about materials, but I think she's having a hard time logging in. So I'm going to talk about materials unless somebody else wants to chime in.
I can do it, Amy, if you want.
Sure.
Okay, so with the materials, this curriculum is, first of all, gorgeous. All the things in there are very appeasing to the eye, and it captures the kids' attention instantly. With this curriculum, it comes with hand-on decodables that the kiddos can read. They're very user-friendly. The pages are thick enough to where when you turn the page, you're not going to tear or risk, them breaking each year. Student-friendly workbooks, which are in color. I cannot stress to you how excited that is. We don't get a lot of color, so it's nice to have it in color. Consumables for the close reading, like Bethany was saying, the kiddos can go in from kindergarten. I teach 5-year-olds. They're able to read through the text, circle letters, learn how to annotate, and work with the text. It's not just something on a paper to them anymore. They're able to bring it to life and to really create the understanding of when you speak, you're reading what you're speaking. So it's kind of bridging that gap for them. There's a variety of text. Pre-made centers, K through 5, which was really important for us because we know K1-2, we had that with the old curriculum, but 3-4-5, it was missing. So it really does do a great job of looking at the whole picture, not just the littles, but also the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. There's letter tiles. It's very tactile. Sound cards that again are very visual. Everything is digital as well. So the materials are very manageable for a teacher, but also for the students, accessible. And then vocabulary picture cards so that we can create this beautiful reading walls that, these kids can visit and refer back to. And then I kind of touched on it. Everything is accessible via technology as well.
Nastalia, do you want to talk a bit about the student workbooks? Because that's a little different than what we have now.
Okay, so we don't have anything right now. But what they are, I wish I had one in front of me. The really cool thing. So I'm actually piloting the curriculum right now in the classroom. And so it's just for each unit, you have a little workbook for the kiddos. These workbooks are also, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but it's my turn. They are with the price of everything. They will be replaced each year. So we don't have to worry about, saving them or making copies. Each kiddo will have one. So what it does is it'll have like an I read, you read, and then a writing that goes with it. And so they are at the kindergarten level, the response pages are, I'd say about this big. As they get older, it shrinks down. So it's very developmentally appropriate. So they're learning how to write according to their age and their ability. Because we know that littles, their bones haven't even formed in their hands versus a fifth grader is about to go into middle school. And they're writing paragraphs in books, really. So it's very age appropriate. Again, colors. One of my little girls, she goes, "Ooh, I love that hair color." I was like, yes. So it's like these little things that are in there that we kind of were missing before, and they're very small, but they make a world of difference. Did you want me to say anything else about them, Amy?
No, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, vocabulary. This is my favorite. As Nastalia said, the materials are very colorful and the pictures are very vibrant and beautiful. But also in the student work text, they have the vocabulary in color as well. Here's a picture of the back of one right here in this slide. So the students can look at that and get a clear idea of what those words mean. Let's see what else. So the vocabulary is also rigorous. It's theme oriented, which I think someone else is going to talk about later too, but the theme relates to a bigger idea or an essential question. So the vocabulary goes along with that. The routines for teaching the vocabulary are very explicit and they follow a similar path, kindergarten through fifth grade. So the routine would be the same. It builds on content, but also uses academic language that bridges other subjects like social studies, science, and math. And then the students use the vocabulary continually. They don't just read it. They use it in speaking and they use it in writing throughout the unit. So, and I thought that the visuals were very relevant also, not like old style pictures. So anything else that I forgot?
Okay, this is mine. This is Stephanie Shoemaker, again, the special education piece of Creswell. And one of the things that I really appreciated about this curriculum is that it's multi-tiered alignment with the core curriculum. So basically, the special education teacher sometimes feels a little left out. We don't always have the same collaboration with the general education teachers. And this will give us that alignment where we can all kind of work together. I can access the other teachers. I can find out what they're learning, where their paths are, and how that relates to my classroom with their students. So it makes the education that much more accessible for all the students. It also helps the teachers kind of give me an idea of where they might be. We're all in the same place, so we're all on the same path. If Nastalia has a student and I'm like, well, what are you working on? I'm not trying to guess. I'm right there with her, and she can just send me a quick email, or we can meet in the hall and she could say, hey, we worked on this today and I saw a little deficit here. Can you work on that this week? And I can just take a quick note. And that really is important to all of us here at Creswell, that we are in alignment with each other so that we just have more communication and collaboration with all of our students, because we want them to be all of our students, not just, oh, they're the special education students or they're the gen ed. I see some teachers in the hall, but others, we just don't communicate as much. So I like this because I really feel like it brings us together much more as a team. Amy, you could switch the slide. Also, there are these are the booklets that are included for intervention pieces and foundational screeners and phonics intervention recognition. And what that means kind of in layman's terms is just that there's going to be parts and pieces of this curriculum where if a teacher doesn't have like an idea of where to go with a student that may not be following along with the other students, there are places where they can find the material. There are places where they can look, and it's easily accessible for them to just kind of pull that information in and use these intervention tools for that student. So the student that's maybe not answering all the questions and they're like, oh, where do I go now? Well, there they are. They're right there. We have the tools, we have the screeners, we have the necessary, and then we can all collaborate. Shauna Bradley, myself, and the special and the rest of the specialists to figure out a path for students who may not be at the same level as their peers. So it makes the education way more accessible for all students. Okay.
All right, I'm going to do our next theme, Jessica May, second grade. So as Nastalia touched on, the texts are super engaging just because they're in color. It's so amazing for the kids to see everything in color. They're visually engaging. Another thing that all of us really appreciated about all of the text was that they had that real world connection. Students could look at it and understand, I know what that is, or question what it was. It's so nice to see that. I myself am also piloting it in my classroom. And what I've noticed is the student engagement has increased so much. There's less behaviors in the classroom because it's such a rigorous program, but it's also very engaging. They're given so many different opportunities to read the text and interact with it, whether that be in their student workbook where they're circling or writing or questioning what they're reading and working with their peers. It's just so many different opportunities. And the really nice thing with the text also is that it aligns with all of our social studies and science. And it has very, very culturally responsive text as well. The books are incredibly interesting. The workbooks are incredibly interesting. And it's really nice to see a variety of text and stuff that interests the students instead of what is just given to us. Next slide, please. And then I'm also going to do instructional routines. The routines are very similarly structured, kindergarten through fifth grade. The one thing across the board that all of us on the team really appreciated was that every single theme is the same kindergarten through fifth grade. So we are all on the same theme the entire year, and then it just continues to loop. And so the students are able to build upon their prior knowledge every single year as that they see that theme again, but it just keeps building and building upon itself. So they see the similar routines every single year. Small group instruction, the routines within that small group instruction were able to meet the needs of all students in our classroom, which is really nice to see. Built into those routines as well, every single lesson has a social emotional learning component to it, which is really nice to see. And just being able to see that students are able to do the I read, I write, we read, we write. It's just again and again, they're getting that instilled that we're going to read and then we're going to write. And they're going to see that constantly and be able to build upon what they know. Did I miss anything, Amy?
No, but I do want to just circle back to just explain a little bit about that alignment. So I want to make sure that that's kind of clear, because it's also aligned through our multi-tiers with our SPED and our interventions, but also that K-5. So like this example in the picture is our unit 3. So when we're in unit 3, the entire school will be reading about government and citizenship at their grade level. So we will have the ability to have even school-wide themes, and all of the kids will be on the same topic. The first unit of the school year is life science. And so that allows for us to, not only for our specialists to be able to have a theme within their groups, but even as a school, like at our assemblies or other opportunities for us to kind of be one cohesive group. So we're kind of excited about the idea that our school could be aligned in terms of that content. And if you had more than one child at the school, they could be coming home and talking about similar things, even if they're at a different grade level. And then I think I am going to do writing as well. So I think it's been talked about a little bit, but here's some sample pictures of the workbook. But every workbook has an we do and a I do section, so that there's a gradual release of responsibility. And each day they're building upon the writing from the previous day. So the units are 3 weeks. And so the writing is building upon itself over the course of the 3 weeks. They're working on skills, they're working on writing process, they're working on grammar and conventions. All of the writing comes with graphic organizers, which are really great skills for them to learn for their future. Each of the grade levels work on handwriting, which sort of went away for a while. It used to be a standard and now it's not. And we just have such limited time that oftentimes it's not always taught, but there is a really easy writing component where they can work on handwriting each week. And again, it builds upon each other each year. So the lessons that they get in second grade will help support the lessons that they get in third grade, because there's a lot of that spiraling that's occurring, both with content, but also with skill. And then the workbooks, again, there's 10 units. And so each child will have a booklet for each of the units. And it has their reading, their writing, all of the work in there. And at the end of the unit, they'll get to take that home to be able to show their families. They'll have their stories there. They can be rereading at home and also be showing their parents their writing skills. So the parents are going to get a lot of information about what their students are doing at school and be able to see it at the end of their 3-week unit. But the writing component is pretty huge because kids will be writing every single day, whether it's through actual writing or through annotating the text while they're reading or answering questions. There's a lot of opportunities to build that fluency with writing skills. And then we'll go on to assessment.
Okay, the assessment tool is a screening and diagnostic tool. It has both of these elements in the program, which is really nice for all levels of this program, because everyone can be looking at those tools throughout the year and figuring out where their student is. We are now using a screening, a diagnostic tool that we all have really started to love. So we're going to just add this on as an extra layer. It has progress monitoring, it has rubrics and checklists so that we can figure out where our students are within the curriculum and make those suggestions and those determinations of where they should be next, or where they're not meeting up to standards, or what we need to do to bring them back up to the level that they are at. And then this can go along with the specialists in the school, so we can all be using the same assessment tools, which make it really nice. Sometimes I know that I take pictures of students' work, and I am so impressed just by the monitoring that we do. When I take just a picture of a dry erase board, I have always taken pictures, and then I'm like, oh, this was in like November and now it's January. Look at the difference. So just having these kinds of tools where we can really look at the assessment tool piece for the school wide is just going to make it really easy for everyone to kind of be on the same page again and just collaborate together. Did I miss anything, Amy?
No, but
every unit has an assessment too. That's the other thing. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Every unit has an assessment piece.
Also, to go back on the writing, you said the word rubric, and I forgot to mention that the writing component has rubrics for the students to follow so that they can be evaluating their own writing and be the first editor of their work, and to be able, so rather than depending on the teacher to be able to tell them whether or not they've done well on whatever the skill is that they're working on, they can actually start to be more self-aware of their own work and evaluating that and fixing it, and then working together in pairs to be able to help edit each other's work. So that creating rubrics for a teacher is that takes a lot of time, and particularly in writing, because it's such a complex skill, that having that already built in is pretty fantastic for our students.
And Amy, before we switch off to the next one, I just want to mention that I did finish a training this week, and self-monitoring was like a giant piece of it, where you give the student the tools to figure out where they've made their, like, the corrections need to be made, but we're not always saying, did you forget to capitalize? We're having them say, oh, did you look at the sentence clearly enough and realize that there might be something, what do you see happening here? And it really brings the learning and the responsibility back to the student, rather than always the responsibility on the team. I learned something also, that you don't always have to be the student's dictionary. You can help them be their own dictionary by having them sound out the letters themselves. So I really love that piece, that there are these assessment tools that we can all work together to bring our education to a level that's at a higher standard.
All right, so that's sort of the end of the curriculum presentation piece. Amy and Chanel are here that can kind of talk a little bit about the financial piece, but before we move on, do you guys have any questions about what we just talked about?
I have some questions if others don't. I don't want to take the whole time. Would you mind? Yeah, thank you for taking that down. That way I can see more screens at once. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I have just a few. If you guys think of questions, just raise your hand and let me know, or jump in. When you were talking about the interventions, does that also offer opportunities for our tag students? The students that just pick up on something and you can just keep them challenged through the whole unit?
I'm going to answer, but I think Amy's shaking her head too. Yes, there is a component for enrichment in all the lessons and all the grade levels. There is an enrichment piece as well. So it's not just the students in special education or other areas in specialists. It is also our enrichment students. So it gives the teachers if I don't have a book in front of me, but there's a box and it says, like, oh, you have a student who's just whizzing right through. Here's some more challenging ways to direct this student, to give the student some more guidelines to move up a little bit. So yes, that's in every single unit. Yes, an enrichment piece.
Great.
Well, and I was going to say, because we are going to be aligned by our unit themes, K-5, if we had a student that was really much farther ahead of their grade level, our teachers would have access to other material to challenge them that wouldn't be off topic. So if we're talking about, let's see, technology and society, then they could pull from materials at other grade levels if needed as well. But like Stephanie said, all of the teachers' guides do provide opportunities for them to accelerate students' learning as well.
That's awesome. Nastalia, I saw you raise your hand. Did you want to offer some thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to also say that the program as a whole is much more rigorous than what we're doing currently. So the kiddos are going to be challenged in ways that they haven't been challenged before. It's not so challenging that it's unobtainable. It's very attainable. And so when I was looking at the beginning, you kind of go slow to go fast. And so it's really setting up those routines and then repeating those routines year after year after year. And they're going to be able to really progress themselves. But as far as like our kiddos that are come in knowing, my classroom, I have second grade readers, and then I have kids I've never held a pencil. And so it's really going to challenge every single level, and it's built directly into it. So I don't even have to guess. It says, if your child or if your student, I said child, sorry, I'm looking at my kids. If your student is, able to do this, move this way. If they're not able to do this, back up and do this X, Y, and Z, so it's built directly into it. It's very user-friendly too.
Yeah, there's in all of the lessons and the teacher's guides, there's opportunities for, extra language support and vocabulary instruction and levels of tiered intervention for students who might just need a little help versus a lot of help. And then in addition to that acceleration. So it does provide the teachers with a lot of tools to reach all learners without having to spend a lot of extra time trying to find those resources. They're all a part of the curriculum.
That sounds awesome. How does this work with curriculum used in 6 through 8? Most of your verbal tonight was K through 5, but is this really K through 8? Or is middle school adopting a second, like a different type?
Yeah, so the secondary schools will be doing an adoption that's not benchmark. This program does go K6, but the 6th grade curriculum is really meant more for a 6th grade that's in an elementary school, not a middle school 6th grade. So it would not be necessarily appropriate for us to look at the 6th grade materials for us based on our system. But when at the very beginning, before we even looked at materials, we really did, as a whole district K-12, look at our priorities and where we knew we needed to boost and align those. So K-12, we have the same vision towards our literacy instruction and identified the areas that we all needed to look for to help that. We knew that we had some areas that we were lacking at the elementary school. And I know that Jenny and Julie's teams did that as well. And so the materials might not be the exact same, but the content and the areas of instruction that we really wanted to focus on are aligned.
Okay, so does that mean in the beginning when you were talking about, I'll call it your shopping list, I can't remember if that was your term or not. Does that mean 6 through 12 has the same shopping list, right? Their ingredients may be different, but they're looking for something different?
They also created sort of their list of things that they were, their themes, the things that they were looking for based on how they felt that the teams came up with these lists based on how we feel that our school contributes to the greater picture, the K-12 picture. And so I don't know theirs by heart. And I know when they present the curriculum, they'll probably talk about that too. But there were some themes that were K-12 that we all had on our lists.
Okay. My interest there, and so this is, for Mike and Julie and Jenny, as they're talking about their curriculum in the upcoming months. My interest is in the past, we've had struggles as 5th graders move to 6th graders with terminology change, right? Like they may actually know how to do something, but the terminology and what both the curriculum and the teachers are saying is different. And so my interest here is, if we're spending all this money, is there an ability to help the transition between the buildings easier for the students so they don't lose that confidence, even though they may actually know the material? Well,
that's a really great question. And I'm going to just bounce in and answer that, because today we actually met, spoiler alert, somebody else is going to talk about this, but our 5th grade and 6th grade teams and our 8th grade and 9th grade teams today, we met together at the middle school and had just an amazing conversation. We really started digging into those instructional conversations and talking about like, what do you do? And what do you do? And we really did discover some areas that were like, oh man, we really do have some areas that we could better support that bridge between the different buildings. And so our teams are starting that work, and those will be the conversations. Like we actually even today discovered some of the strategies that our 5th grade teachers were doing were not necessarily helping the 6th grade teachers, because it was a totally opposite thing. So we are going to be having those conversations moving forward so that we can continue to bridge the gap with instruction and all of our different systems. We want that to be a smoother transition for kids.
Awesome. Okay, a couple more questions, or at least a couple comments. I absolutely love the fact that there's handwriting help in there, because as a parent, even up through 5th grade, I was telling my son, I can't read this. I don't know what you're doing in school. I don't know how you're getting a grade on this. Like his handwriting was atrocious. And so I really worried for him in middle school. How is he going to read his own notes? So the fact that this has handwriting is, we like literally bought handwriting workbooks off of Amazon, and I made him go through it. And as I talk with other parents, they kind of had the same struggle. So thank you for the handwriting help and the extra focus. I think that is so important. I know we use computers more, but kids still have to learn how to read their own notes. So that's super cool.
And the more that they write and become more
Yeah.
fluent with their writing, it'll be better. I mean, we have depended on technology so heavily the last 2 years, particularly, but even just in the last handful of years, that we now know we need to really focus in on that a lot more.
Yeah, I love that they're going to get their workbooks. Like they write in their workbooks every day. They bring them home. So that also I was very
I
excited
wish we
about.
were in person because I'd really love to like have you touch all this stuff, but there are some really cool materials.
That's awesome. And my last question, what have you received with parent input so far?
From the parent input that I've received, it's all been positive. They've asked a lot of, the people that we've talked with have asked really great questions and seem enthusiastic when they see the materials. Because, I know that we've talked a lot about how engaging it is by the way it looks. And that seems like maybe a superficial thing, but I got to tell you, I've observed a couple teachers who are piloting it and the kids are so engaged because of the color. Things are current and relevant. And so the great part about the whole workbook piece is that, in 5 years, if something has changed in the world, maybe something is now considered politically incorrect or Pluto is now a planet again. I don't know, like those things change and we're not having to replace these $70, $80 books, but the publishers actually can change it before they print it for us for that year. And so yeah, the piece of that engagement has been really key. And I've witnessed it. I mean, I saw some kids who really typically don't do a whole lot, it takes a lot to get them to do the work. They're not very independent, just totally take off and be successful.
That's fantastic. Okay, so that was my list of questions.
Can I just say one thing? So yes. I personally am a parent of 2 elementary students that will be using this. I know Jessica May has kiddos in the elementary. Bethany has kids in the elementary. From a parent perspective, just being able to, because when you ask your kids, oh, what'd you do at school today? And they're like, I don't know. So that's usually a response you get. But at the end of the unit, you can really truly see all their work. Plus, you have those stories in there that they can go back and read. And as a parent, that is so awesome to have those tools given to us so that we can go through and help them read or do whatever they're doing, take interest in them, putting the cell phones down and really being a part of their life in that conversation. And then I can't wait for my 3rd grader to have conversations with my kinder next year about, oh, what did you learn about the government today? So as a parent, I know it would be really awesome to hear that too. I just wanted to say that. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I never apologize for
very important.
Yes.
I have to tell you that, on our team, everybody has been so like enthusiastic and inspired by just even the conversation around instruction, because everything's been COVID for so long. But teachers are feeling very excited about the idea of new curriculum. And, Nastalia and Jessica, particularly as parents, are like, they are looking at it from the parent view and have been some of our biggest salespeople here at the school. So you can say something, Jessica.
I just have one more thing to say. It's not from the parent standpoint, but we're talking about how much the teachers love it and the parents love it. In my classroom, this has been the first week ever that I've had students come and say during our reading time, hey, can we get out those books that we read during small reading? We didn't get to finish it, or I want to look through it again. They actually are interested in going back and looking at the books again that we read. And they'll come up to me and ask questions. And the unit that we're on right now is all about inventions. And it's just to see the students excited about it. I mean, it's one thing to have the parents and the teachers excited about it, but the students just, I've seen such a change in how excited they are. And they want to actually look at our small group reading books, our other curriculum we have. They don't care to go look at that again. They're like, well, we've already read it. It's very, very nice to see that they are very actively engaged the entire time.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, Nastalia didn't talk about this. I'm surprised, but the real authors and celebrities read the text. So we do have like the ability to have them listen to the text. And it's not the same old like kind of monotone, boring, like Surrey. I don't know, but it's a variety of folks who have recorded the readings so that it's engaging for the kids in that regard too, just even listen to the story.
It is really cool. It's my favorite part, to be quite honest. And I was waiting to, I was trying to be respectful of the time here, but it's really cool, you guys. Really cool.
That's very cool. So if you're using it in classrooms, are you piloting it in just a few, or do you have it in all classrooms right now to get feedback?
Well, we have, every teacher has been given a pilot kit that has 2 units. Some teachers have not yet started that because it's just, overwhelming in March to be trying to learn another curriculum. But we have at least one at every grade level, maybe 2 or 3 that are piloting it. And I have to say, even the people who are a little hesitant have started to be like, oh, wow, this is awesome. So I haven't heard any negative feedback from the teachers so far who are using it in their classrooms.
Okay, fantastic. If there's one of those, this is totally a selfish question. If Mrs. Mercer has one of those units, maybe I can take a peek at it before my IRC time this Friday.
Yes.
Okay, and if it doesn't work, I totally get it, but that would be pretty, I could take a peek at that curriculum when I'm in there reading with first graders.
Yeah, I'm not sure if she's using it quite yet. She might be somebody who's waiting to look it over.
Okay, totally fine.
But we have materials here that you can look at.
Okay.
I have it in my room. If you just want to go right across, you can come in mine.
Okay.
And I'm using
gonna take
it
you up
right
on
now. So you'll see it like live on the walls and all the color and all the cool things.
Okay, I'm going to take you up on that.
All right, come on down.
Thank you.
Room 10.
All right, perfect.
I have a couple of comments, Lacey, if I may.
Yes, please, of course.
First, it's kind of at the heart level of, not growing up, not having much and going to school, being a kid and having a teacher hand me my workbook where I'm going to have ownership of my work and I'm going to take it home with me because it's my book and I'm going to bring it back and do more work in my book would be extremely meaningful to kids as their possession of their learning. And the pride that they'll build in it. Secondly, and I know this is the choir, but at the heart of teaching and learning is literacy. We know that improved or increased literacy levels increases student achievement across all disciplines. So this is absolutely critical to our schools for our kids' futures. Have this standard of a literacy curriculum. And then lastly, and you can hear it coming through this group, is the passion that this school has for this curriculum, to commit to it, which isn't something that's happening right now. They're using curriculum at different grade levels and they're pulling sources from here and there, or they have, to make their curriculum on top of something. But this brings everything that they need and they can team up with it, the entire school, which is huge. And if we're going to build a foundation of success for the second or moving on to post-secondary education and careers and being life ready, we had to prepare them at this level. We need the tools to do that, to set them up for the next level. And then continue on, even for the highest level. It starts here. And a lot of what they learn here will carry on all the way through. That's what I appreciate about the work that they've done to investigate this curriculum. It brings that for us.
Well, I am certainly excited about having an updated curriculum that actually engages the students, right? Getting their attention is sometimes the hardest thing. And the fact that they're engaged means that we're helping them move along the learning path. I actually thought of a question when you were talking, Mike, about having the curriculum in the classrooms. Maybe Jessica and Nastalia can talk about, what does it feel like as a teacher to have to adopt a new curriculum? Is it a heavy lift to switch curriculums and learn? Like, how do you teach it if they have you teaching things in a different way than what you were before? Like, is there a startup cost or like a one-time investment cost with new curriculum? And is that heavy with this piece? Does my question make sense?
So I think you'll have people that are very eager and excited. I feel like I'm on that end. And then you'll have people that are very hesitant because we have changed so much over the last 2 years. I feel like our profession is the only profession that has truly had to reinvent itself over and over and over. So I feel like the change for some people is just going to be really overwhelming. And so kind of if you whittle it down into the middle, I know 100% we all want what's best for the students and that every teacher will be behind it. Some of us might be a little slower to warm up to the actual changeover because it's really overwhelming to think about that. But with starting in March and April, you know, the year with the summer, son, stop. It will, I'm so sorry. Leo, stop it.
Never apologize for your kids.
I wouldn't worry about it, but he has no shirt on, and I don't know if that's appropriate on here.
I was going to say, bring him on camera.
Oh my gosh, get off the camera. Stop, Leo. So, you know, there's going to be people on each side. And so I think just being really open to that and mindful and just having people that are more willing to put their foot out and try it out, you're going to have people that are willing to help those people who are maybe struggling. So I feel really confident in the fact that I'm getting in there. Every week I plan a new lesson. I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, that really didn't work. So then when I'm talking to my coworkers, I'm like, you know, looking at it when you started, I wish I would have done this. And so it's been really rich conversations. So I don't know if you want to add to that, Jessica.
I agree with everything you're saying. It's very refreshing is the word that I would use. Also the fact that I don't feel like I'm having to search and find and spend so much of my prep time trying to put together, what do I need to make my class meet the standards? What do I need so they're making progress? Everything is there for me, and I can work with my team and not have us piece stuff together, but actually sit down with the materials that we already have from this curriculum and be able to plan so much more. And like Nastalia was saying, you can find out what's working, what's not working. Hey, I tried this with my small group. Okay, well, maybe I'll try this, because everything is there for you. And yes, there are some teachers that might be a little reluctant about it, but I think in the end, everybody's going to have that word of, this is refreshing. This is nice to have everything there for us and not have all of these papers everywhere trying to put something together to hopefully make it work. This is working, and I'm seeing it working. This is my 3rd week piloting it, and I'm just so grateful for how successful it is.
Amy, I did
the last part I just wanted to add about it was, I'm sorry, I just cut you off.
Sorry, Nastalia, go on. Sorry, we were both.
Oh, is it you, Stephanie? I'm so sorry, you guys.
It's okay. It's okay. I did want to say, I don't think we
fine.
mentioned this, but one of the things, Nastalia and Jessica, do you remember this? And Bethany, they said it would be really easy. This curriculum is very easy for a new teacher to adopt. It's so written so clearly, and so like anyone could open it up. Even a sub could open it up and figure it out. It's not hard to work with. That's what I wanted to say. Nastalia, you're on now. Sorry about that.
I was going to say the same thing about the sub. So like when you're planning for a sub, it's kind of a nightmare, and you're like pulling from this. Oh, is this going to be too hard? Do I have to explain it and leave too lengthy? You know, it's turn to this page and it literally walks you through it. So it's really comprehensively written, and it works for a lot of people. Oh, and our IRC, it has great programs for the IRC for our reading programs. So they can come in and be confident. It walks you through the steps. I mean, nothing will replace, you know, talking with the teacher and collaborating, but in a pinch, if you were to pull it out, it's really easy to follow along. The materials are all there. It literally tells you what to say. So it's a really cool piece. I can't wait for our IRC to take a look at it.
Great.
We've had
Bethany, oh, I saw Bethany try to raise her hand. Just real quick, Amy. Bethany, did you have a thought?
I was just talking with Jessica about the ease of when you adopt a new curriculum, how you, because I've done that, and how, you know, the first time you go through it, you hit all those little like snags and you find all those little things that you could have done better. And so then the next time you do it, you remember that and then you get better at it. So each year you remember from the prior year, oh, wait, I forgot. I'm supposed to do it this way. Okay. And then you get better at it each year. So piloting it is great because you get to test it out. But then next year when you start like on day one, unit one, you know, everybody's going to be doing it together and we can all kind of stumble through it together and support each other. So, and then we'll just be better at it the next year.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for waiting, Amy.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you noticed her hand. I was going to just mention that this curriculum does come with a professional development plan that's a part of the purchase price. So there's actually the very first professional development is just walking those teachers through like their stuff, like lay out all the materials and orient yourself to the materials and the curriculum and what you do for each piece. And so there's, I believe, 2 like online self-directed PDs, and then they do some in-person PD. And then in addition to that, they have sort of a menu of topics that we can purchase add-on professional development. So like maybe even in 2 years, we're like, wow, we'd really like to deepen our instruction around comprehension. And they have a couple different choices in here where we can contact them and, you know, have them come and provide some training. So the idea that we could continue to not only just learn about the materials, but we can have more content or instructional conversations and professional development around like the actual instruction, I think will be helpful for us as a school to be in alignment that way too.
Fantastic. Did any other board members have any questions? I'm seeing head nods.
I have somewhat of a question. I'm curious about the teachers that are a little hesitant. Is there a plan to kind of bring them on board, make them a little bit more excited for it? Is this something we're going to ask them to start doing after spring break, or is it going to move into after the summer?
Good question, Ashley. Yeah, so the pilot materials, I'm not pushing it. It's optional right now. They're looking at it. Some are jumping right in. Some are just looking it over and they're not implementing it yet. Some are going to try it out after spring break. But I think like what the team here was kind of talking about is the level of collaboration that the teams will be able to work together and help each other out. And I don't know that there's anybody who's like, oh, I don't want a new curriculum. I think every single person here wants a new curriculum. I think it's just a matter of it being March, and we've had just a lot on our plates this year. So I don't know that anyone's hesitant in changing curriculum. Rather, just the timing of it has been a little, it's a little hard for some folks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But we do have a lot of specialists too. So like Shauna Bradley, who's our school improvement specialist and works with the reading interventions. I know she will gladly be supporting teachers as well as she is right now, as well as myself and other folks on our team I know will be helping.
Well, is there an implementation time that you have for the school?
Well, as soon as we approve whatever it is we approve, intent.
Sure.
From there, we're hopeful that we can get the materials in the building before the end of the year. I've already kind of tentatively scheduled some of those PDs to happen this year during our Wednesday time so that teachers can leave over the summer with their brains wrapped around what it'll look like in the fall. And then we will be scheduling the professional development with the publishers to happen, shortly after the year starts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that sounds great. Any other questions? Okay, I really appreciate the time you guys gave us tonight to talk about the curriculum. It's exciting for us as a board to be able to talk about something other than COVID as well. So So thank you for bringing this. It looks great. I am so glad to hear that the teachers love it, the parents love it, the kids love it. It sounds awesome. All right. At this point,
Lacey, can I say one really quick thing? Just because
Yes,
I know we'll
ma'am.
be up for
Absolutely.
board approval here in a little bit, but I did want to just kind of be the ringer of this conversation in the cost there. And so you may be wondering, well, can we afford this amazing curriculum? And so we've been our secondary team has already made their preliminary selection. So we're gathering quotes. And so I did want to let the board know that as we look at acquiring, whether it's a 6 or 7 year term on this new curriculum, right now our numbers are showing with both our elementary and our secondary quotes that we're coming in about $5,000 under budget. Now our numbers are still a little bit fluid as we're looking to see how we want to project cost, whether it's 5 or 10% over just in terms of new enrollment. We're hopeful that we'll get lots of that happening in the next couple of years. But so I did want to let the board know that too. So we have looked at all the curriculum options, and Mike and Chanel, please correct me if I'm incorrect in this number, but the board, the projected cost that was allocated was 300,000. And as I mentioned, we're about 5,000 under, and that is projecting high right now. So we are doing all the professional development, all the extra resources that we can, just so we get a really high number. And then if we need to whittle down from there, we can go from that point. So did want to let you know that as well.
That sounds awesome. I appreciate that, Amy. All right. So where we are going in the agenda, we have some unfinished business that we need to move on to if we're finished with the presentation. And then in just a couple items under new business, we are going to take up the discussion of adopting it. So I know our team that joined us, I see you're all at home. You have families. Feel free to hop off if you want. That will not be offensive to us at all. We don't want to take extra time out of your day. If you want to hang in there, hang in and jump off as long as you want. But I really do appreciate everybody giving us the time. All right. Okay. All right. So we'll move on to we have two citizens that have applied for 2 of our 4 open budget committee vacancies. And so I'd like to take each one of them separately. So we would have a vote either for yay or nay for it's Chris Witham, and a vote nay or yay for Erin Weatherly. And let's take up Chris first. She sent in, she's been on the budget committee before, and she would like to renew her position, renew that for position number 1, which is a 3-year term. Is there a motion on the table for Chris?
Move to renew Chris's position, or for position number 1.
Awesome. Thanks, Debbie.
Second.
Thanks, Tim. Any discussion either about the motion or questions? Okay, all in favor, please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, all of us vote for that. That passes unanimously. That's great. All right, and then the next motion would be for Erin Weatherly in position 2, which is another 3-year term for us. And she also sent in her resume, so you should be able to have seen that as well.
I move that we appoint Erin Weatherly to position number 2 of the budget committee.
I second.
Great. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Mark. Any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand on the screen so I can see that. That's fantastic. That's unanimous. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, we will move on to our first new business item, which is budget development assumptions. Mike, do you want to walk us through that?
Sure. So we have some information. We've received our state school funding estimates. What you're seeing in the revenue assumptions is that we're expecting a $250,000 decrease in our state school funding. although we're in the second year of a biennium. So the second year, because it's a 49-51 split, there's more money that comes to us in the biennium the second year. Because a higher percentage of the money that was allocated to our district through the state school funding. So we're making it through that, but our enrollment, the $250,000 decrease is due to a decline in student enrollment. And what we're seeing in Creswell is similar to what's happening across the state, but not quite as deep. So we, with this decrease or the decline in enrollment and this decrease in funding that will come out, this 250,000, it would be more if we were in a 50-50 split right now. It would be a lot more, probably 500,000, half a mil or better. But we have worked hard to prepare for this because we could see the decline in enrollment coming. And I've been talking to the board about this for a couple of years now, since COVID hit in March 2020. So as we've been preparing for this, we have been shifting our funding expenditures from our general fund over to grants that have come in since COVID hit, since the pandemic hit. So we started with the CDL fund, funding and the grant that came from that. This is all part of the relief funding. So the CDL funding that came in, and then the ESSER 1 funding and ESSER 2. So what we've done is we've moved expenditures from our general fund, and we've used those grants to fund our personnel or expenditures for supplies or what have you out of that grant funding. And so we've been able to build a reserve or our end fund balance up. And that's intentional so that we can maintain our current level of service, staffing stability through next year and then into the next biennium. When we get to the next biennium, there's going to be an adjustment that happens to the decline in student enrollment because there's a 30% decline in student enrollment across the state. For us, it's a decline of about 12%, which equals 144 students, which is 1.4 million. Now we're not going to feel that next year because we're in the current biennium and we've already been funded for this biennium, but we're going to feel it in the next biennium. That explains our current revenue assumptions and also our ending fund balance. Our expenditures assumptions, I kind of hit on that. We want to maintain our current level of service. So we want to roll up our staffing. We can maintain it through next year with the money and the cost savings that we've had by using the grants to get through the last 2 years, the grant funding. So we know what that's going to be. We're good to go there. And if we can maintain that ending fund balance up there around 7% to 9%, then we'll be able to maintain our current level of service through the next biennium when everything gets to actual enrollment and the state school fund then adjusts to the enrollment in public schools in that next biennium. That's our plan and that's our strategy, or our goal and our strategy. Purchase services, we started cutting into our supply money at a 25% across the board when the funding started to, or it looked like we were headed into a funding crisis in this biennium. And that is also attributed or contributed to that ending fund balance amount of the 9% at 2.9. So we'll continue to do that because we know that we have to continue to prepare for what's coming if we want to continue to provide what we're doing. And that's how we're going to come out of this thing alive, so to speak, to where we can continue to increase student achievement and success with the programs that we have in place and the staffing. We also want to continue to fully fund 275 from the district side. When we put that 25% cut across the board in supplies, that was initially to help offset that picking up that amount in Fund 275 as well. All in sum total, we've been able to cut costs out of our general fund, and offset it with these others with soft money grants while we have them. Another comment or a note that I would make about soft money grants, when you're looking at grants, they're soft money, they're not guaranteed. So although we may have an ESSER 3 hanging out there right now, while we're going into an economic downturn and inflation is going up, things can happen to that ESSER 3 or that SIA funding, because those are grants, and grants are soft. They're not guaranteed. So we always have to keep that in mind while we're going into our budget assumptions, looking further out into the future rather than just next year, but the next 3 to 5 years, and maybe even beyond.
Okay. Any questions for Mike on the budget assumptions? I know we'll be hearing it probably each month as he's starting to build his budget. As things change from the state, Mike, I'm sure you'll bring us back any changes that you know about.
Yeah, I think the one last thing that I would comment on changes is the expenditure assumptions, because we're moving into bargaining with our associations. And that is going to certainly have an impact on where we're at with our ending fund balance going into this. But still, the goal is to provide or continue with stability in our staffing and provide our current level of service. So we'll work it out.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions on this from anybody? Okay. All right, I think we're going to move on to our next agenda item. It's a discussion action on the ELA curriculum adoption for the elementary school. So we obviously just had that presentation. It's listed as discussion action because if folks wanted more time to actually be able to see the curriculum, go down, test it out before they voted, we can postpone that if that's the board's desire for next month and take action on it. If you're ready to adopt tonight, then we can do that as well. How are people feeling about if they need more time to look at the curriculum?
I move to approve the ELA curriculum adoption for CES.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Any discussions on that? I saw Candace shake her head no, she doesn't need any more time. Ashley, Mark, Debbie, they're all okay. All right. Any other questions on this motion before I ask you to raise your hand?
No, just my compliments on an excellent presentation.
I second that. I agree. Enthusiasm alone was great. It was a great presentation.
I enjoyed it as well.
Very, very well done.
Thank you. I will share that with the team.
Thank you, Amy. Okay. All right. Raise your hand and I can count all the hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Got it. It passes unanimously. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Amy's going to do her happy dance.
I should maybe like videotape when we tell the staff, because there's going to be maybe some tears.
Great. Great. All right. Okay. Next item, superintendent evaluation. This is an ongoing conversation. We saw the timeline and the rubric last month at our regular meeting. We then had a special meeting chatting about how, like, refreshing our memory on how to use those tools that we adopted so that they were more fresh in our minds. In that conversation, I really want to thank Mark, because he kept asking the question over and over, like, I don't get this, because what I was saying did not make sense with the rules that we were talking about. So this is where I love having a team. we cannot break up and be able to hold materials outside of an executive session. And so we checked on that with the attorneys, and there has not been any change in that during COVID for virtual meetings. So what that means is we need to, if we want 2 executive sessions, we can still have 2 executive sessions, but we do not get to bring our notes home with us so that we have them to think about. We have them in front of us. So my proposal is that we have an executive session. We hold one executive session where Mike will begin by presenting his self-evaluation. We can take all the notes that we want, take our time. We would do an individual scoring based upon the self-evaluation. Mike would either, leave the room, or if we need him to come back in to answer questions, he would be available as we need individually to score. And then we would probably take a 5 or a 10-minute break and ask Marilyn to give us a composite score. We would hand our individual scores into Marilyn. She would score them on the 4 different goals. And then the, Mike, I'm drawing a blank. After the goals, there's, standards. There's some kind of standard.
So the national standards, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And so we would get a composite score for each one of those. And then of course, an overall rating at the end, if we so choose. So that's my proposal. And I would propose, although we need Debbie's input, because Debbie, you may still be in Arizona next week. I was hoping that we would be able to do it in person and just sit around the boardroom and be able to look at, any material. We can still do this virtually because we did it virtually last year as well.
I will not be there. So, I don't want to hold it up for everybody, but I will be in Arizona. So,
okay. But
I'm really sad that I'm here and it's nice and hot, but no, I'm just teasing.
Would you be able to attend virtually?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So I think for me, then that matters, because I think all of our voices in the room, even if it's a virtual room, matter. So we would hold a virtual executive session and just be able to, take our notes, do the individual scoring, get a composite score if that's what everyone is feeling like. And then at the end of the composite score, we would make sure at a summary level, we all agree with what that composite score is making up. It should, right? Law of averages there. And then we would conclude the executive session and we would appoint one of us to write all of those details up into a summary level statement that would be read into the regular April board meeting that would go into Mike's personnel file. So that's my proposal on the process. And so that keeps us legal with the executive session, keeps us on time with what we want to do with the evaluation. So does that make sense with everybody?
Not quite. Are you proposing an in-person meeting with Debbie as the only one virtual, or are you saying all of us virtual?
I hadn't actually thought about that option, Tim, so thanks for that question. I'm still in an either or thinking. So I thought, man, if we can't do it in person, we're going to all be virtual. My hesitancy here, and Mike, fill me in if you know more, there's a new law around how we hold in-person meetings that we always provide. Of course, this is executive session, so we probably don't need to worry. We could probably still keep Debbie on virtually. So I'll just take it from the group. I think we can actually do that if that's what people are wanting. I don't think that's going to be an issue. So Mark, you also raised your hand.
It would just be easier for Marilyn to do the scoring if all of us except for Debbie were in person.
Good thought, Tim. Mark?
So forgive me if I sound dense, but if we
No,
have
please.
a virtual meeting, this is the question I raised. If we have a virtual meeting and we take notes out, even if it's an executive meeting, if I take notes, those then have a chance to become public record, yes or no?
Yes.
Whereas we are in person, behind a closed door, in an executive session, and everything is gathered up at the end of the executive session, then it is still privileged information.
So Marilyn, correct me if I'm wrong. When you got additional information from the lawyer on how we would handle this, if we held it virtually, we would still be able to take notes. We would literally just be turning our notes into you. Even if it's the next day, we would be able to do that, correct? Or did I misunderstand that?
Well, they didn't encourage what they said. I know it's complicated. Is that you would have to make it extremely clear that this is certainly privileged information and it was not to be shared.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you guarantee that?
Mm-hmm. So the in-person option that Tim had recommended would certainly be the best case scenario.
Yes.
Well, at this point, I think that's the only option that really makes sense, to keep us out of hot water and to make sure that we're perceived as being above board. We do it in an executive session behind closed doors like we did it before. Nothing leaves the room, and then there's no ifs, ands, or buts or questions, or somebody later on raises a question, about what happened to materials.
How did we do it last year?
We didn't do it.
We did do it last year.
Yeah, we did. We did it all virtual.
Last year, we did an executive session. I read all of my information to you, and you had to base your scoring on what I recited to you.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You didn't have a
We
copy.
also used, we verbally set our score to Marilyn and she recorded it. Is that how we did it last year?
Yeah.
I know that we couldn't write anything down. I remember that part.
Okay, so I'm hearing we're gonna have an in-person executive session, with the exception of Debbie. And Debbie, I think we're gonna follow up with the attorney to make sure we know how to handle the notes that you would take, so that you still have the ability to take notes if that's an option, and then just know how, and I can read any statement, I can make anything clear.
Okay.
But I think that should be doable in this world to figure something like that out. If we have an in-person, is everyone else available next Thursday? I think that's the 17th.
17th.
Thank you. Next Thursday. And if we started at 6, so that we were not, we gave ourselves time to do the individual scoring and not super late.
I'm good with that.
So you're asking if we could be available for an in-person meeting on the 17th?
Yes, starting at 6 p.m.
I'm good.
6 p.m. on St. Patrick's Day. I'm good.
I'm available, but I will not be in person.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah, keep rubbing that in there, Miss. I'm in Arizona.
We end practice at 6, so I might be there at 6:10.
Okay. So if we started at 6:15 or 6:30, would that be better for you, Candace?
6:15 would be great. I could make 6:15.
Okay, great. Mike, what about you? Mike Anderson.
Pick up, Mike.
I wonder if he can hear.
Yes.
Okay, I was going to say, I think he's
Is it Chad? What's that?
Chad Hymas. Yeah,
Is
there's
that
no.
better?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Mike. There's no conflict with Chad Hymas.
I'm good with that time. Okay, I'm good then.
Okay. All right. Great. So put it on your calendars next Thursday, the 17th at 6:15 in person. Debbie, I will find out how to handle your virtual attendance and get you instructions. Or I will take the instructions and have to read something. That would be fine too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Thanks for everybody's patience as we worked through how to do this.
And we're
Okay.
meeting at the boardroom in the district office.
Yes. Okay. All right. Next item. It's actually a fun one. Middle school promotion and high school graduation. There are dates in there. We need to let both Julie and Jenny know if we want to be there, be a presenter, get to hand out and shake hands with all the happy students. It's a fun time. Who wants to be there in person?
I would like to be there in person for both.
Okay, all right. All of us are raising our hand. So, okay. All right, I think is that all you needed, Mike, from us, is to find out who can be there in person and help? Okay.
So are we all going to be at both of them, or are we all wanting to be maybe some at one and some at the other? That's
good.
I intend to be at both.
Okay.
I can be at both, but my preference is the high school if it feels overwhelming to have all of us.
Be at both.
Okay.
It's not overwhelming.
Okay.
Okay, Candace at both? Ashley at both?
Yep.
Okay, we're all going to be everywhere, Mike.
All right.
Okay.
It's like 2019 now, you guys. We get to actually do things.
And we can see your face.
No, without a mask. That'll be fun. All right. All right, we are just going to keep cruising through this agenda. Trustee reports. The first and probably most important thing that I would like to be able to do is ask Ashley to read the resolution recognizing our classified staff.
I have it. Hold on. Okay. Sorry, I was prepared, but it got minimized. Okay. Whereas the education of youth is essential to the future of our community, state, country, and world, and whereas classified employees are the backbone of our public education system, and whereas classified employees work directly with students, educators, parents, volunteers, business partners, and community members, and whereas classified employees support the smooth operation of offices, the safety and maintenance of buildings and property, and the safe transportation, healthy nutrition, and direct instruction of students. And whereas our community depends upon and trusts classified employees to serve students, and whereas classified employees with their diverse talents and true dedication nurture students throughout their school years. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Creswell School Board of Directors proclaims March 7 through 11, 2022 to be Classified Employee Appreciation Week, and be it further resolved that the Creswell School Board of Directors strongly encourages all members of our community to join in this observance, recognizing the dedication and hard work of these individuals. Adopted this 9th day of March, 2022.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. Candace, did you have your hand raised? Oh, okay. It's virtually raised. You have a little yellow hand at the top of your screen. Probably right next to the mute button. I've done that myself. Okay, awesome. Thank you. I think that, do we have to vote on that resolution, Marilyn? No, okay, great. I didn't think so. Okay, I do think that's an important resolution. We have so many people in our schools helping teach those kids, and there's a lot of different duties included in classified. So if you see a classified staff, give them a hug, thank them, wave at them. My favorite's giving them a hug. Okay, all right. We will move on to the business manager report. Do we have any questions from that information?
Aren't we going to do the trustee report?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Tim. Yes, that's fantastic. Why don't we, Tim, why don't you start?
I had to open my big mouth.
I'm glad you did. I would have just kept right on moving. Thank you.
Well, on February 15th, in the morning, I spent at Mrs. Kuhnhausen's class or classes at Creswell Middle School, where they had 2 separate trials for Goldilocks, and they split the room into guilty and not guilty, and each student had to get up and talk about their reasoning and justify it. And I thought it was great, because I don't think they quite realized that it was a speaking assignment, and that they had to learn to speak in public, but that's exactly what they were doing. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. Mrs. Kuhnhausen says that next year I'm going to be a witness. Apparently, I'm going to be Papa Bear. Anyway, on the 15th in the evening, we had a board work session, which I attended. Then on the 17th, Jenny took Mr. Parker and myself on a tour of Creswell High School, and we learned some very valuable things, and some students showed us some little go-karts they're trying to assemble to help handicapped kids, and they're doing some great things there. And then on the 17th, I did bargaining training with Lacey and Mike and several others.
All right, thank you, Tim. Mike, what about you?
I took 30 days and took off on a vacation, went down to Palm Springs, Arizona, Las Vegas, and came back. And now I know what Robin Williams felt like in that RV movie when he was trying to find a rock to stand on to get reception. I finally just gave up, but no, I haven't done much. It was a good trip for us. I love Arizona, a lot of history, that kind of stuff. Las Vegas, I'll never go back again. That it's just, it's all about money, I guess, down there. I don't know. But anyway, I had a really good vacation, and I feel charged back up again to get back at it with work and whatever I need to do coming up. So it was a good time.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Ashley, what about you?
I attended the board work session, did a leadership meeting with Lacey and Mike. I'm still doing the food for kids deliveries every other week, teaming that with Lacey. And then today I got the opportunity to do the Oregon School Board Association's board chair cafe with Vince Adams and Jim Green. And it was all the hot topics about masking and liability and not masking and liability. And it was very, very informative. So thank you for letting me attend that today, Lacey.
Absolutely. You can attend every month with me, Ashley. Yeah. Is there any takeaways that you wanted to share with us?
I think my biggest takeaway is how appreciative I am, how cohesive our board is, because a lot of the other boards were chatting about how their members don't get along, and there's a lot of, they've lost focus of what it's really about, in my opinion. So I appreciate each and every one of you, because we all work so well together, and it was kind of interesting to see that side of it. And then they just touched a little bit on, they took poll from all the districts that were there, who was masking, who wasn't masking. And about 70% of the districts that they polled are removing the masks on Monday. And then the other ones, I think like 15% were keeping the masks. And then the other 15% hadn't gotten an announcement from their district yet. So yeah, it was very informative.
I'm so glad you went. I have found those. That's a new thing just in the last couple months. And that I have found those to be really helpful. So
Jim Green is always so informative. He's one of my favorite people because he knows his stuff. He's great.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for going, Ashley.
Absolutely.
Okay, Candace.
So I also was able to join the board's working session earlier this last month, and then we started spring sports on the 28th. So every evening I am generally at practice between 4 and 6:45-ish, whenever the girls want to stop. So that's been really great to get to see everyone out there again and get to see everyone having fun. And we're very lucky to have 29 student athletes on our team this year, which is amazing considering 3 years ago we had 9. So we're very excited to see the numbers grow.
So Candace, how do you put 29 kids out on a softball field?
Yeah, it's really hard with one field. I went to a district that had 2 fields, so this is a new learning experience for me on how you fit that many kids in one place. We are very creative with gym time, and then teams. We're lucky to have both a JV and a varsity, but we have enough kids that even that doesn't feel like enough this year.
Wow.
So we want to keep everyone, right? It's important for everyone to be out there and have some, something they feel comfortable and excited to go to.
That's exciting. Have you always had a JV? Have we always had a JV?
No.
Softball? Okay.
No, I mean, we've always supported a JV team. We've not always had enough kids to field a JV team. So we're excited. Last year we had a JV team. Last year we also had about 25 girls. So it's nice, but our numbers are high. It makes it interesting to make sure we have enough games that they all get good experience.
Awesome. Thank you for doing that, Candace.
Absolutely.
All right, Mark.
So let's see, since the last, I had a nice sit down with the principal at the middle school and we had a nice tour. I also had a nice sit down and tour with the principal at Creswell, and she showed me all the cool things they were doing, including a book vending machine, which is very cool. And then also with the high school principal, and we went on a little tour and were treated to a little mini concert. We happened to get there when they were playing, and that was very cool. Also did the board work session, and I'd also like to kind of expound on what Ashley was talking about. I read through a lot of the emails from the OEA and the School Board Association, and I see how dysfunctional a lot of the school boards are throughout our state. And, I'm appreciative of how well our board and our superintendent work together, and, all of our staff and administrators. So I just wanted to show my appreciation for that because we're lucky. That's all.
Thank you. Debbie?
I have been busy with traveling currently, but I have done a few things, but I did also travel to them because I did go to Culver to the girls state wrestling tournament, which was a very small school for such a big event, but it was a very exciting day for Brielle and Jenna Lynn, our other participant had a kind of devastating day, but it was a really good event. And then we stayed over and went to the boys tournament in Lapine. We had 2 wrestlers there. And then I am currently still working with boosters to have our 16th annual auction, which we had a couple years off of. So trying to recreate that after taking a couple years. It's a lot of work. But that's going to be on May 7th. And so we're excited to have that in-person event again. And then I did meet with Amy at Creswell, and I got a great one-on-one school tour and a lot of data from the iReady. It was a great day. So yeah, so that's what I've done.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I continue to read with Mrs. Mercer's kids through IRC as well. And I had a great conversation with Jenny on the tour through the high school. And I mean, I've been on the board for a while and my daughter's been in high school for a while, and there's still spots of that school that I hadn't seen. So I really did appreciate the physical walk around, Jenny. That was great to be able to see like the workshop and the welding. And after you had shown the welding and the issues that you had with like the individual booths, not allowing, team projects and things like that. And then hearing that you got the grant to update that program is just fantastic. So thank you for writing the grant and being able to update our facilities. That's really exciting. So I think that's all that I'll share. You guys have mentioned pretty much everything else that we've got going on. So
one thing I need to interject is I forgot to thank Amy for the tour of Creswell that I went through. I left that off of my list. So thank you, Amy.
Yeah, I think all of us that have attended the tours have walked away learning something that we didn't quite know about the facility or what was, kind of the operations that was happening inside. So I think it's been great. I've heard only positive things so far. So we really appreciate all three of you principals walking us through and spending time with us because we know you have a busy day already. Okay. All right, business manager report. I'll jump back to where I was going erroneously before. Any questions on the business manager information? Chanel, thank you for writing the grant that is supporting teacher and employee wellness. That I probably was not in your board report, but it was somewhere I remember, and I just wanted to thank you for writing that.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, technology and facilities. Any questions for Joel? Or Joel, do you have anything you'd like to add?
To Mark Parker's surprise, I do not. He always tells me I talk to
Chanel, I should have asked you, was there anything else that you wanted to specifically highlight with your board report? You're certainly welcome to.
I like to keep it short and sweet and just show you the numbers. So if you ever want to see more or have more questions for me, I'm happy to give them.
Okay, that's totally fine. All right, transportation. Any thoughts or questions? All right, special services. Amy, do you have anything you specifically want to highlight with this?
No, I think some of it's somewhat redundant because I was giving you the layout and timeline for the ELA adoption. So Amy and her team did a phenomenal job of illustrating that very well. The only other piece would be that Creswell Community Foundation grant. Part of the process is running that through, and it's not really, Joel, maybe help me out with that. Not really board approval, but just notifying the board that we did receive a grant. Am I articulating that correctly?
Yeah.
And that grant will be used to support families in immediate crisis. So if families need, for whatever reason, quick housing, a hotel, clothing, food, it's like a 24-hour until we can get state or local agencies to step in and support. So that is the purpose of that grant. And our building admin will be helping facilitate communication with that, as well as our school counselors and teachers too.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad to know that we have that urgency level of support for families.
Me too. Yeah, great partnership with Creswell Community Foundation.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. Any questions for community engagement for Julie? Is there anything you'd like to highlight, Julie?
No, I don't think anything specific. Just as again, continue to welcome the people to spend time on the development website, because the more feedback we get, the more improvements we'll be able to make, and we're looking forward to being able to roll that out in due time.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Okay, elementary school. Any questions for Amy? Or if you'd like to highlight anything, feel free. She's still on, right? Yeah, there you are. You're at the bottom now. My screens keep moving as people turn their cameras on and off. You're not in the spot. I just looked. I really appreciate seeing the iReady data. Appreciate that being in the board report.
Yeah, you're welcome. I went over a little bit more with Tim and Debbie. Mark did not want to hear about the data. Just giving you a hard time, Mark. So we do have a lot of other information too that I'd be happy to share, but it's pretty exciting to see the growth, and our specialists have also seen a ton of growth with our students who are a year or two behind. So they're really making a lot of catch up growth. So it's pretty exciting for us.
When the teachers, Amy, started seeing the results, I mean, I'm sure they weren't completely surprised, right? Because they see like every day and every week the students progress. Did seeing the results in person kind of confirm for them, like, yes, all the hard work is paying off. The kids are starting to close the gap. They're getting it.
Yes. That, and also the thing that's been kind of a game changer is because the iReady is so aligned to standards and the reports that we get are aligned to our standards, a teacher can dial down and actually click on a student and see specific standards that they're still having a deficit in. That has really kind of changed the narrative for some of our students who are not at grade level, because we're not saying like, oh, they can't do math. It's not, they're not talking about it as a whole, but rather they're able to really talk about specific skills. And so we're able to highlight the skills that they do have and not feel like it's so overwhelming, like they have so many missing pieces. So that has been helpful. And then when we're having our data team meetings, we are actually able to have deeper conversations around the progress students are making. So I think that our teachers have felt, like you said, a little validated, and that they're seeing the progress and we're able to actually see it on paper. But then we can articulate better what that progress is based on the standards. So.
Fantastic. Okay, any other questions for Amy? Right, middle school, any questions for Julie? Or Julie, if you'd like to highlight anything, go for it.
I just wanted to do another shout out for Classified. I know that you guys did the proclamation, but they really are the backbone of all of our schools and all of the principals. We were talking about just how blessed we are with all of our staffs, that they truly care about kids and are hardworking, and none of us would have made it through this entire pandemic, and kids would not have made it without their passion and dedication and coming to work, even when it was difficult and even when folks were scared. So we really appreciate that. And I'm also just very pleased with the iReady data as well, and appreciated the board members coming to campus and poking in on classrooms and asking really great questions. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And just so that this is on the the public record side of our meeting, I had chaperoned Miss Anderson's We the People field trip today up to Western Oregon, and that is a curriculum that is fantastic. The 8th graders spent hours and hours writing presentations that they presented in front of 3 different judges, and so they had to read the statement, and then they had to do impromptu questions on those particular prompts or the questions that they had to answer. So that meant they really had to form an opinion about whether political parties were good or not, whether the Electoral College was helpful or not. And so these are 8th graders that are looking at, social media and whether that's helpful or influential in a positive way or a negative way in our political system. So they're having deep critical thoughts about things, and whatever we can do to keep supporting the We the People program and getting kids through that. You wouldn't think 8th graders are capable of that kind of critical thought on huge, big issues that plague our society, but they are, and this curriculum takes them through them. So just huge kudos to Mrs. Anderson for that. Julie.
If I could just piggyback on that, a lot of times I will say schools where I've worked, some folks really shy away from the hard topics and topics that make folks uneasy or think, oh no, this is going to get kids riled up. The reality is we need kids to learn how to talk about these tough topics in order to be citizens that can then be appropriate and have conversations as adults. So I really appreciate how Mrs. Anderson and the other teachers take those difficult topics and really bring them down to a level that kids understand the expectation of everyone can have a point of view. Here's how you respectfully get your point of view across, as well as listen to others. So good practice.
Yes, the summary feedback from one of the 3 judges, it was a 3-judge panel. The retired Oregon Supreme Court judge that was one of the judges, her feedback to the class overall, because we witnessed this with every team. So that would be a 3 to a 4-person team. And there were, I think, 6 or 7 teams that were there. Her feedback was, even during the questions, when she would ask a specific question and they had to give an unpracticed answer, so their opinion, even when they disagreed with their own team, their transition and their like confirmation of, like one student would say, you know, I'll just use a fake name, like, Joe, that's a really good point, and here's another one. Or I'd like to further add with this thought that may be a little bit different. They must have practiced those because every team had them. And the judge had confirmed for those kids that is the way that adults should be acting. Like, that is how you talk about your opinion, but you don't put others down when they do it. And so she was applauding the kids, and it brought tears to my eyes standing in the back, because it's such an important practice for everyone to know. And those kids were hearing from a very important person that they were doing what they need to do, right, for our society to continue. So, all right, I can go on and on about how great the day was today. Very energizing for me, but I won't, because I know we're probably all wanting to get on with our night. But I told Kendra, whether I have kids in her class or not, I want to chaperone every year. It's just such a great experience. So, all right. Any other questions for Julie? Okay, what about the high school? Jenny, do you want to highlight anything for us?
Just the CTE grant. Super excited to start spending some money on welding machines, and to know the difference between the types of welding machines, more than Lincoln is red and Miller is blue. So we were having interviews right now and have some great applicants. So that's exciting. And the data, for on-track graduation, that's in there and really impressive. Our kids are working hard. And then one thing that we learned today is that the Oregon Promise Grant altered their qualifications slightly. So students with a 2.0 grade point average are now eligible to receive that. So that has opened it up for about, I think she said 8 more of our students to receive, or if they choose to, be a part of the Oregon Promise Grant. So that's really awesome. And thank you all for coming and touring. It was fun to get to show off all the work our students are doing, and just have you there. And Tim is not allowed to talk about his high school shenanigans.
All right. Okay, there's a story there we'll have to learn offline, Tim. Okay. All right, Mike, I think you're up.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, were there any questions for Jenny? Any other questions? I didn't want to bypass over anybody. Okay, all right. You're up, Mike.
Okay, well, lots of activities going on in the last month, but picking up on the community activities for sure. Now that things have changed, there's a lot of community collaboration going on. So, we've been working with Doug and the community to bring Chad Hymas in. So that's a huge event. That's an all district. We're all in, the whole district and the community. And that has been a big project and a lot of help. Julie Ward has been on that team, that committee with us, and she's doing a phenomenal job. But this is a huge lift to happen, and it's going to pay off. I mean, it's big. He is going to be awesome. Another community event that collaborating in with Joel is this World Track Championship thing that's coming to Eugene in the summer, and bringing the Finland team. to Creswell. We're going to host that team. They signed the contract, so they're coming. And we're getting some preparations in order. While we were assessing our facilities, we just, a couple of the areas in our track facilities for our kids were not usable. So we're working on those. We're doing some fundraising to address those. One of them is the long jump runway. The top surface of it was it was bubbling up and peeling and cracking, and it wasn't going to be able to be used this track season. We couldn't have that happen for the kids. And the other is on the pole vault pit. Got to do some repairs around that. And those are all going to help with community contributions towards this hosting of the Finland Olympic team coming here. The best in the world hammer throwers. Can you believe the best in the world hammer throwers are going to be in Creswell? And we're working with the best hammer thrower Olympian in the United States right out of Eugene. And Lance Deal is going to be, he's our consultant right now. So Creswell is going to be the hammer of the country. We're going to have the hammer team. All the hammer throwers are going to want to come to Creswell because we're going to have a hammer pit. So that's going to be awesome. The committee is so excited about that, and so are Joel and I. And but lots of people coming together to make that happen. Another is the 4th of July fireworks show, the traditional one that has been here for years. We didn't have it last year and the year before because of COVID, but we're working with the Chamber of Commerce, and we're going to have the 4th of July show back at our stadium. And so we're going to be facilitating that here this summer. And let's see. That's about it on that stuff. I did want to talk about, did anybody have any questions on any of those items? Just super excited to be working and collaborating with the community, the mayor, our community leaders, and bringing everyone back to the football field is going to be awesome. I won't miss it. The last 3 weeks has been my time, days, nights, weekends, have been inundated with everything that's been processing, or that I've been processing for the new guidelines that came out from ODE, OHA, CDC, and coming down to, optional masking or universal masking requirements. So with that, meeting with the agency, gathering information, then processing it with our A team and setting up things to where we were going to be able to accommodate all the guidelines, whether we were mask optional or required masking. Either way, we had new guidelines coming that we had to develop new operational plans for and procedures for each building and each department in our district. So we were able to process that. It pivoted once on February the 28th with the target of March 31. Then we had a quick pivot shift again to March 19th, and then another quick one on the 11th. And each time one of those pivots happened, then there's a week of meetings and processing that with this A team. So we reprocessed everything 3 different times. That was a lot of time that kind of distracted us from our main focus, which is teaching and learning with the kids. But we finally reached the point of where we can make a decision, and I put the slideshow up here of the data that informed my decision to go with optional masking. And really the telltale data for me was getting down to the community and their perception and their desire or their wish to go, and coming out at an overall 88% in favor of mask optional. But the student attendance really tells the story of the spread of the virus in our community, because when it's in our schools, our kids are absent. You can see that. We had up to 61% of our kids or 49% of our kids that were absent in the first week of January when we first returned from that. And all the way to where we're now at 93% attendance rates or here in the first week of March, but as of this week, we are now at 96.5%, higher than we were even in 2020 before COVID hit. So that tells me a lot. And that data should speak to you as well. Anyway, there's the population immunity estimates. If you look at that graph, I'm working from the bottom up on my slide deck. That gray area is the growth of immunity, where we're at now. So you go all the way back to March 2020 and start to see that gray area appear to where we get to March of 22, where that gray area has taken over that graph. And that's the immunity level at 83% and growing by the week. When I see our attendance rates going up like that, the spread has decreased here by that much, 3% in our student body. We looked at another graph, Julie and I did, this next one, the census forecast, the primary scenario. We looked at that and their forecasting was to have, by the end of March, this red line, the growth, down to less than 200 or less than 100. When we looked at it, we were at less than 200 today. That's where the graph is at today. So we're even declining in cases quicker than they forecasted, but right in line with that graph. And then the epi curve, the peak and the decline, how fast that happened. Unbelievable on that epi curve to where we are at March 1. And we're talking about moving up the date for mask optional, moving it up twice actually as we approach March. And then the community COVID levels. So we went from high to medium last week with that case count going down in that graph that was less than 200. They review the metrics every 7 days. So the last 7-day reading, they moved us from high to medium. The next 7-day reading is going to take us from medium to low. With that decline in cases, active cases in the hospitals, that's what's going to happen. If we don't hit low on Monday, we'll be at a low rate anyway. We're at 3 in Creswell. We are extremely low when we're looking at 3% absentee rates in our schools. Anyway, any questions or comments on the slide deck or the information that I sent out, the announcement to our community?
I appreciate you sending out the announcement. I know we had a lot of parents wanting to know what we were doing. So that was great. And I appreciate all the data in the slide deck.
When I sent out the survey, I also sent out the same data or the attendance data. I kind of summed it up in the survey narrative so that folks would know where we were headed in our community right here in Creswell with the spread of the virus or the decline of the spread of the virus. And I thought 88% is the highest approval rate that I've heard of. In a district.
Yeah, I appreciate seeing the survey results and knowing that so much of our community is feeling comfortable at this point with moving to optional masks. It's good data for us to have.
It helps support the decision.
And even seeing the forecasts that it should be staying low.
Well, we'll keep one eye, open on what happens after spring break. But locally, we're looking pretty good. We will be in good shape.
Awesome. All right.
That's
any
all.
questions? Okay. Any questions for Mike? Okay. I think we are at the end of our agenda, which is fantastic. I'm sorry it's past 9 o'clock, but most of our time was on the language arts curriculum, which was so good. I really appreciated all the time that the teachers gave us, Amy. So again, pass on a thanks for so much of their evening time. It was a really great conversation that I enjoyed.
I say here to Amy and Amy. The A&A team. They just they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, thank you. All right, just a reminder that next Thursday is when we set for our executive session for 6:15. Sorry for my coughing. And I will see all of you there next Thursday. And Debbie, we will see you on a screen next Thursday. Okay, have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.